When we kept asking these people, would you like to have an HIV test? And they kept saying, you know what, I really don't need another bad news, thank you very much. It made me look at this issue of stigma really seriously.
So when I started doing work at the age of 15, there was a vibrant youth movement of straight allies, of gay and lesbian young people, and we took to the streets and we were doing outreach. We were doing underground needle exchange. We were knocking on doors in SRL hotels, begging street workers and prostitutes and young people who were involved in survival sex to understand the importance of condoms and understand the importance of safe sex and negotiating power within those situations.
If people don't even have access to primary education, how do they get the skills to compare and contrast and to analyze? Because those are things that you're taught through learning how to learn at school.
Yes, I grew up, and probably by the time I was 10 I was on a computer, but the majority of my interaction is still face-to-face. And I think I feel like 25 years from now, I don't know if that's the case, and so I have developed being able to read facial expressions of other people, and that's you know, a really important thing for me. That's why I would much rather sit down and talk with someone than have a dialogue online.
Public conversations are a good way to create a safe space for people to talk about issues that may be sensitive. We've seen some interesting work with public conversations, particularly around the subject of AIDS, and how communities address stigma concerning people who have AIDS or people that are engaged in behaviors that make them vulnerable to AIDS. In Cameroon, we hosted a series of public conversations with segments of society that typically are not heard from. For example, women of means who have the ability to purchase sex, or men who have sex with men, came together in public conversations among themselves to talk about why they continue to make themselves vulnerable to HIV. In San Francisco, we hosted a public conversation where people who were living with AIDS or perhaps were at risk of HIV and AIDS were able to stand up and tell their personal stories among a community group that was supportive of their needs.
Our messages. I believe all our messages for HIV and AIDS prevention are so much Western, middle class and up oriented. I cannot tell an indigenous woman in Bolivia, use a condom and be safe, because the moment she says condom to her husband, she's going to be at risk of domestic violence. So I need to work differently with this woman.
The important thing that happens in a public conversation when safe space is created is that we reach real understanding about belief systems and dominant attitudes that the community holds about that issue. These conversations were enormously successful because not only did they create the safe space that people needed to talk, but they elevated the importance of the issues in the mind of the general community, and they gave people information they would not normally have received.